So here we are. This is episode 4 of What It Means to Be Sqilxw. I'm your host for this episode. Don't get used to me. I think might be my only one. Usually I'm behind the camera, but everybody's really busy. It's been a really busy couple of months, so I get a chance to host, and I'm really excited to be hosting this one today because I'm with a very special guest, a very spiritual young man who has a very unique perspective in what it means to be Sqilxw. And I just like your whole approach to life in general. I think you just have a really cool vibe to you. You're really seem like a really spiritually awakened human being. I feel like I could just sense that almost right away when I met you. There's just something about you. I knew you had a really interesting life experience, and I'm excited to talk about it today. So whatever you're willing to talk about, I'm all ears.
Yeah, very happy to be here. Thanks for the opportunity. I love to talk about my experience and share my experience. Yeah, was that the first time that we met was in the language conference, right? The Northern Quest. We're in that little back room.
Yep.
Yeah, we got into it pretty quick.
The back room at the casino.
The casino.
We were not there to bet anything though. We were there podcasting at the Sqilxw language conference.
Podcasting, networking, learning. Yeah. No, it was a good time. It's been a while since I've been to that conference. My grandma used to take me all the time.
And who's your grandma?
My grandma is Samtica, Sqilxw Samtica. My grandma is the late Sarah Peterson. Yeah, that's my mom's mom.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's who my grandma is.
And for people that don't know, she's kind of a legend in the Okanagan language and culture community. She did some amazing work for saving the Sqilxw language and making sure it got recorded. In fact, the whole curriculum that we've used to teach is based off of the language work that she did with the Salish school.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just amazing. I've heard her, I've never met her in person, but I've heard her voice so many times and heard the recordings of her saying the phrases and saying the words in the N1 and the N2 programming that I feel like I know her, even though I've never met her.
Yeah, you're pretty lucky to hear that. I grew up hearing she got this tone when she used to get mad at us. I used to get in trouble a lot. I used to I like to play with fire. I like to test the boundaries. I like to test people, and sometimes that's not always good. But yeah, she had this tone. She would yell at us in Sqilxw, chlam, yelling furiously. But yeah, she was amazing growing up with her. I kind of took it for granted growing up with her, because I never really understood what she was doing, what she believed in, and I just always grew up with the language around. And she would always give us lessons whenever she could, whenever she had time. I would spend the summers up there because I was born in Kamloops, and I lived in Kamloops for a while until I was 5, I think, or 6, and then we moved to West Bank. And so the only time I ever got to spend with my grandma was either during the summer on breaks and stuff. We'd go back, or weekends, and those are the times when I was given lessons, and she just instilled a bunch of different teachings into us, Sqilxw teachings, or Sqilxw. She used to make us run up the hill and stuff in the morning, and we had to go feed cows. Grew up feeding cows and chickens. There was chickens there, and this is all in Sqilxw. Sqilxw is the place name of that where my grandma lived, and that's where. Have you ever heard of Harry Robinson?
No.
Harry Robinson is like he's written a bunch of books, and he's an old storyteller. He's a pretty legendary storyteller. Like a lot of people reference his stories and his knowledge and stuff. And anyways, that's where he lived. He lived in that same area before, and that name Sqilxw means something, and they call it Sqilxw. Those are the the people that lived here in the Smokeamine Valley. Like our ancestors, they were Dene. They spoke Dene. They were at the Baskin. And so that is a different language family. It's not Okanagan. It's not Salish. That Sqilxw. Yeah, it's a very interesting place, special place. Spent a lot of time there. My grandma used to always smoke hides. Just grew up around all that stuff, and I never really knew what it was until like later on. And yeah, I'm just very grateful to have grown up with her.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And I remember when we were talking before, you talked about your grandma saw something in you from a young age.
Yeah, my grandma. Well, like when my grandma's health started to dip, like she had a stroke or strokes, and then she got some like kind of infection in her leg, and then it like she got sick from it, and she was already like, she's in her later days, and yeah, so her health really dipped, and during that time she went on palliative care, and so I think that's what you call it when they bring her. She has to like be looked after 24/7, and so like our family got together, rallied, and we were all taking shifts and stuff. And at the time, I was living in Kelowna, and I would come down and do my shift, whatever, hang out with my grandma, and yeah, it was during those times that like I also was going through an awakening. I was going to school in Vancouver, and I was at Capilano University, and I was playing basketball. That's really what I was doing. I wasn't really trying to go to school. I was just trying to live out my dream to be a basketball player, to be a professional basketball player, or just to play basketball. Like I just wanted to play basketball, and wasn't really focused on school. And then had a rude awakening, and came to realize that I needed to come home and learn my culture and learn my language and stuff. And so as I was going through that time, that's when my grandma's health started to dip, and there was a lot of like hard times, hard conversations with my family and stuff about what's going to happen. And this was like it was like I just had this awakening, and it was like, oh, like I need to go see my grandma, like I need to go spend time with my grandma. And then like that was like like it was fleeting, like that whole path was fleeting, like it was leaving, and it yeah, and so it was really tough. But during those times, she would just I don't know, she would always say that she would always tell me, we'd be talking, and maybe it's just the questions I'm asking about like stories, like stories of the ancestors, or how we used to do things and stuff like that, and what she thought about this and that. And she would always just end up saying someone in our family is going to inherit these gifts, and I was like, well, what are these gifts? And she'd always be like, oh, like these are just it's like it's for whoever's meant to have it. I guess someone's gonna inherit these gifts, and these gifts were like, I don't really know. Like, yeah, like I guess she said that we have medicine people like in our lineage, and that runs in our bloodline, like that power, that gift, I guess, those gifts. And that's what she was referring to. And I didn't really understand it at the time, but like during that, it's going through this whole like like what you're saying earlier, kind of like an ego death sort of. But I was kind of like, oh, I don't know who I am. Like I was like, I need to figure out who I am. I need to go back to my roots. And that's something that I learned at a drum making workshop in Vancouver when I was out there going to school. And the guy was like, you need to understand where you come from. In order to know who you are, you need to know where you come from. You need to know your roots. Like go back to your roots, and you'll discover yourself. And so that's what I was doing. And she kept saying that, and I was asking my cousins and my sisters, my my family members, I'm like, did grandma ever mention this to you? And some of them were like, no, she never mentioned anything like that. And there was a few who were like, oh, she mentioned it like a few times. Like, but for me, it was almost like, it felt like it was almost every time I was going to see her, somehow we would always end up on that. And she'd always be like, someone's going to inherit these gifts and they should be ready, I guess. Like, I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
If she was trying to like tell you something, send you a message there.
Yeah, and like it was kind of, that's what it felt like at the time, and but the other part to that was that she was like, oh, that's not technically, that's like, it's a hard life. Like that's what she said. It's a hard life. It's not something to be glorified. It's not something to be like, like that's what you strive for. But it's like a hard life, and you have to do it. Like, because it's for the people. Your gifts are for the people. You use those gifts to help the people, and that's what it's all about. Is helping yourself, but also helping your people first and foremost. And yeah, she's like, that's a hard life. It's a difficult life to live, and yeah. And so I was kind of scared of that. I just the things that I was going through. There were signs. And it was kind of, it was interesting. And like, I ended up getting cancer. I ended up getting acute lymphoblastic lymphoma, and had a 3.5 inch by 3.5 inch tumor. And yeah, and so I was like, I nearly died. It was sitting on a major artery. It was like right in the middle of my chest, and it was sitting on a major artery, and it was blocking my circulation. It was like slowly cutting off my circulation, and my lymph nodes were really swollen, and my whole body was swollen, and I was on the verge of dying basically. And yeah, and so there was like, that experience, like where I have this just like this memory of like going someplace else, like, and it's like, like intuitively it was like I felt like I died.
Mm-hmm.
And I went to this place and there was nothing there. Like it was just darkness. It was just nothing. But it was like at the same time, it felt like I was everything and everything was me, and I had this like different state of consciousness, this like different person, like, I don't know, it was a different feeling. And it was like, you just kind of like, it was like the all,
Nice. Yeah. It was like a different realm.
A different realm.
You kind of got pulled out of this reality.
Yeah. And
interesting.
It didn't feel, like to a human right now, like you're to be there and like, oh, it's just dark. Like, because that's like, you have your emotions, but there wasn't really like any emotions.
Mm-hmm.
It was more just like an awareness, like, and it was like
consciousness.
Yeah, I was like, I don't know if I really did die or if that's just what happened. I don't know what happened. I don't know where that came from. I don't know if that was a dream, what happened. But during that time, like lots of crazy things were happening when I was sick and I was in Vancouver, and there's so many crazy stories about like, yeah, just synchronicities. I like to call them synchronicities, like signs, like there are signs from the ancestors. Something from a higher power was like communicating with you in that moment. Yeah,
it's like too much to be a coincidence.
Yeah, like there's, I don't believe in coincidences. Like, my grandma, Tuit Samtica, would always say that everything happens for a reason, and that everybody has a set time to die. Everybody's time is set, and like, I don't know what that means about the space in between. I don't know if you can do whatever you want. I feel like you probably can, and you still can prevent it. Like, that's just your time to go. And like, I guess, everything happens for a reason. But yeah, like the coincidences and stuff, the synchronicities that were going on, like it was kind of nuts. Like, like there was one time I had a big operation coming. They were going to take my stem cells out. From the back, they're gonna take my stem cells out, so they like wiped me with chemo. I was like med treatment at this point, and I'd been like through 2 rounds of chemo. So they wiped my system. They went in there to go take my stem cells out, and then they were gonna wipe me with radiation and chemo again to make sure everything was gone, and then plant my stem cells back into me, and like reboot my system. And so, anyways, it was a huge, like, I think it was like an 8-hour operation, I want to say something like that. Like I was put out for a very long time, and I was kind of like stressed out about it. I was like, shit, what if this doesn't work? Like, what if the stem cell transplant doesn't work and my body doesn't recover? Or what if the cancer just comes back? Like all these things, right? And at that time, like the things that were keeping me kind of sane were trying to just be normal and stuff and do normal things, but also like, the synchronicities, like knowing that I was being watched over. And like one of those things was seeing eagles. Like for some reason that just made me feel like I was being watched. And like it was kind of weird. Like I'd always just know where they were. Like we'd take a lot of walks in Stanley Park, and or I'd look up and I'd see them flying like in a circle above me and stuff like that. And so anyways, there was one time where I hadn't seen any signs for a while, and I was kind of getting worried, and I was like, shit, do they still got my back? Like, are they still watching over me? And I went for a walk by myself, and we were living right there by Robson, downtown West Side. I think that's what they call that right there. And then I walked to Stanley Park, and my sister from Alberta, she called me, and we were on the phone, and I sat down. I think it was Third Beach. I don't know which beach they call that. Anyways, sat there, and there's a log, and there's a bunch of people walking, and it's COVID. It's like COVID times. This is like 2020, 2021, 2020. And sitting there on the log, and then all of a sudden I was on the phone, and I was just watching the sunset and the ocean, and I hear this like in the sand, and I was like, oh, like I thought it was someone's dog. Someone's dog was just gonna run up on me, and I was like, I turned to go look, and it was 4 otters. And they ran, like I'm like sitting on the log here, and they like ran like right by me, and then they were playing like in front of me. They were playing in the water, and I was watching them, and I was like, oh no way! I was like telling Brittany, I was like, 4 otters just ran by me, and like, cause I was looking for a sign. I was like, I was like, show me a sign, and sure enough, that was the sign, and I got to see the clouds too. Like I shit you not, like the cloud. Like changed shape, and it looked like an otter.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow.
So, and I was like, whoa, like that was a powerful moment. And I was like, okay, I'm all right. Like, I think that's the sign that I was asking for. And so, yeah. And there's so many other things that happened during that time. Like it was crazy.
Was there like specific symbolism in the otter, or?
I don't know. Like, I don't know what it was really. Like, I don't know. I don't know what it was. It just, for some reason, it felt good. And I don't know. It just felt good, like seeing them playing. Like it made me feel like, oh, I'll be all right, because they were playing.
Yeah. And
they like came by me and stuff, and they showed themselves, and like it seemed like there were so many people walking around, but it seemed like I was the only one who saw them. Like they maybe I was just hallucinating. I don't know. Like from the chemo and stuff, but like I don't think so. Like but in that moment, it felt like it was for me. Like, and that what I was watching was this message, and I don't really know exactly what it meant. I just knew I'd be okay, and yeah,
that's cool. Well, and otters, I don't think there's like a more happy, like playful animal that exists.
Yeah,
I don't think you have an interaction with an otter. It's not like neat or special in some way.
Yeah, they're interesting creatures for sure.
And so what happened after that? Was that just like your recovery? Like
after that, yeah, I like got the stem cell transplant. It worked. My body rebooted and stuff. Cancer free. Everything went well. Like the other thing too is that when they gave me my stem cell transplant, it takes like for minimum, I think minimum it was 4 to like, I don't know, I want to say like 8 to 12 weeks for your body to like reboot. It has to start creating white blood cells and neutrophils. That's it. I think it's neutrophils and white blood cells. That's your immune system.
Gotcha.
And yeah, so typically like 4 to 12 weeks, let's just say that, something like that. But I was so fed up with it. I was tired of it. The radiation took a toll on me. The radiation was the worst part for sure, like the worst. And I was just done with being in the hospital, and I was done being away, because when I was in there, you couldn't have any visitors, and so I was isolated. And I'm like young. I'm like 21. I got cancer when I was 21. and I felt like I was missing out on life, and I was like kind of freaking out. But also like, at that same time, my grandma was dying, and I was like, shit, am I gonna die before my grandma too? Like I was having those thoughts, like I'm about to go for my grandma, and I was like, damn, that's crazy. Maybe I'm not the one that's supposed to inherit those gifts, and so
Jeez,
that's
wow.
what I was thinking too, But then, I made it. I ended up being the nurses. So the doctor's coming and he's telling me, and I'm like, what's the soonest I can get out? Like, what's the quickest? What realistically, be real with me, what's the earliest date that I can get out of here? And he's like, oh, well, for you. And he picked March, I think it was March 18th, March 17th or March 18th, something like that. And that was 3 weeks. And I just focused on that day every single day. And I visualized what I was going to do on that day, what it was going to be like to be out and taste real food. I was so tired of hospital food. All of it, the smell, the taste, the sound, the sight, the feeling, everything. I was visualizing, I was manifesting it. And every single day I looked at that day on the calendar and I was like, I'm getting out on this day. And I ended up getting out on the 19th. And a day after of what the original date that was set. And because I got, as soon as your body reboots itself and starts producing those things, your body gets sick. It gets like a fever. It gets sick because it's like your body doesn't know what's going on. So I got that, and so I had to stay an extra night. So initially I could have got out on that exact day, but anyways, the nurses were like, I've never seen somebody recover so fast from a stem cell transplant like that. They're like, you're the fastest person I've ever seen recover from that, and I made it in 3 weeks.
Nice.
Yeah, and that's because I just freaking believed, and I just was like, I'm getting out of here. I want to go home, I want to see my grandma.
You're just manifesting that whole time.
Yeah, and I was just like, I literally willed it, felt like, but who knows? Maybe I didn't. Maybe it was like I had power. Maybe I had help too, like, but like I felt like I willed that.
Yeah.
I freaking willed it, and I was like.
Yeah, that's interesting territory. It was like neuroscience. There's a neat book out there called The Brain That Heals Itself. And the whole thing is about like how like you should be able to like mentally create these things. Like,
yeah.
And so it looks at like examples of that. And I got to go back and read it because it does have some really cool examples. And there's another book like that by the guy that wrote The Realm of Hungry Ghosts. What's his name? He writes another one about just like the brain's ability to the connection between the brain and the body healing. And I lived with these two ladies, and the one, she had a website, Better Brain, Better Life, and she was really into neurosciences. And she would always like do these tests with me. So it might be like a cognitive test, or sometimes it was like a light test. She'd put like these goggles on me, and the lights would like measure the brain. She'd have like diodes measuring your brain waves, and so it'd be trying to like trigger alpha brain energy. And so just like all these ways of kind of like building that mind body connection, that brain body connection, and how there is something to it. And so I find it fascinating. I know that like you can definitely make yourself sick, your body's sick in your brain. There's times I've felt like I've struggled with like anxiety and depression in my life, and I've had like imaginary illnesses where I've felt like, oh, this is happening, oh, that's happening.
Right.
It's almost like you're living it, even though it's not happening to you. So I'm
very powerful.
I believe in it. Yeah. So back to what Samtica had said about you about seeing this in you. Do you feel like you've realized any of it? Do you feel like any of this sort of, now I won't call it a prophecy, but maybe some of what of her vision was? Do you feel like it's come to life, or do you feel maybe there's something coming up in the future? What do you think?
Like, I guess one thing, like a disclaimer, is that like, I don't want to be that person. I'm not that person to be like, oh, like I am this, like I'm gonna be this. This is what I want, like, but there's so many things that have happened. Like, I don't know, maybe that's my own personal thing too, is like where I gotta like really work on that doubt, or like, doubting myself or doubting what's happened. Like, there's a lot of crazy shit that's happened in my life, excuse my language, but like, this is like, again, surface. We skimmed the surface last time. We got pretty deep last time, but
Yeah.
even this one too, like, I don't know. There's just certain things that like, I don't know, like those are personal things that like I've experienced and seen. But um this past spring I fasted for the first time in my life on the mountain.
Nice.
And I got a vision. And I'm not gonna explain that vision right now, but I will say that like, yes, like, yeah, there are things coming in the future, and like that's what I learned. And I learned a lot of things while up there, being up there, a lot of things that I'm grateful for and what really matters to me in my life. Um and that's my family, and that's my culture and my language. Like I think those are like the key principles like in my life. Like it's my family, it's my fiance, like building a family with her, but it's also my mom and my sisters, my extended family, my friends, like all that stuff really matters to me the most. And my culture, my language. I love my culture. I love learning about my culture. I love learning about other cultures. I just love learning cultures, and I love language. And yeah, and so I know the path that I'm walking down is the right one, and I know I have a general idea of like where it's headed and like what's to come. Like there are some things to come, but even then, like they don't always talk directly, like the ancestors. Like it's like very subliminal. It's like they kind of like it's allegorical. Like that's how our stories are. The chaptik, like it's allegorical, right? Like they say not to take it literally, but it's like allegorical. It's like metaphorical,
Yeah.
And it's so, but like it can be interpreted in so many different ways, and that just depends on where you're at in that moment of time. Like you could be in a different state of consciousness in a different time, and then come back and reflect on it. It might mean something different,
Yeah, for sure.
So, but as of right now, like, yes, it feels like I am moving towards something, something greater than me, and like that is something. All those things though, like the family and like the language, culture, it makes me feel a part of something greater already. And like all of that is like it's just my identity. Like it's almost like my identity is forming. And it's kind of interesting how this opportunity came up now because of like just something recently, like where I don't know, it's just lately like the topic has been identity, like in conversations, and it's almost like that's the frequency, like, and you catch it or like you in tune with it and it like manifests whatever.
Yeah, it's a season.
Yeah.
Seasonal thing.
Yeah. Yeah, who knows? Maybe
it's
I'm
funny
just
how things connect
jibber-jabbering.
like that. Like even just like you hear a song and then you hear the same song. I haven't heard that song in years, and then you hear it again and you're just like,
Why
is
keep
that
popping up?
why is that song playing again? Or a word or a thought or idea.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like there's something more at play.
The greater, yeah, the great mystery, the Kolintuden, the creator, the one who created himself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and oh man, there's so many good thoughts and lessons around there. Like, okay, this might go a little bit sideways. I just wanted to touch on this a bit because I think it's an interesting thought. What is Kolintuden? Like, what is your interpretation? Is it like
what is Kolintuden?
Is it something that's not knowable? Is it like maybe like a collective consciousness? Is it like what is your interpretation?
Well, I was just listening to this. Well, yeah, that's where it was. I was listening to this. Alan Watts?
Sounds familiar.
He's like a philosopher.
Yeah.
He's like I don't know what he actually is. He might be a psychologist. But anyways, I like listening to him talk about things. He talks about life and reality and all these things and stuff. And he's talking about God. And he was like, I can't remember exactly what he was saying, but it was like along the lines of like coming to realize that like God is you and you are God. Like everything. It's like God, you're wearing one of many masks of God. And that God has like is playing this game of like hide and seek with himself by, you know what I mean? Like, and he created this reality to like learn about himself and created the polarity, you know, the good, the bad, like everything. All of it is him, yeah, or it. Like it's weird how we always say him.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah,
you know,
that's
like everyone says
that's
him,
the old book
right? Like
coming into play.
for sure. But it's like even, you know, like yeah, I don't know, the Colin Chuden, like yeah, the Colin Chuden to me is it is me. Like, and I'm not saying that I'm God by any means in that way. More like a philosophical like view, I guess. I don't know. Like it kind of sounds wrong when you're like, oh, I am God. Like no, but you're an extension of God. Like
Yeah.
it's almost like to me the Colin Chuden is we're like in his mind. Like I always have thought about this. I've thought about this a lot, and like you know that's what I think. I think that we're just in his mind, and like we're his thoughts. Like we're all his thoughts and everything. We're all extension of him, and he's an extension of us. You know, like we're all one and the same, but like also very different. You know, like, and it's like I don't know. Sometimes like these people say like it's a freaking simulation or whatever. You know, it's like an algorithm, and it's like solving himself. Like that's one way to interpret it.
Sort of, yeah.
Yeah, but it's like this like higher power. You know, like we can only understand so much. You know, like we only live in this dimension, right? Like you know, there's
To me, it almost seems like everything was once unified, and then it's slowly just like fractured apart, and then we've splintered off into our own little worlds and our own little journeys.
Yeah,
and it's kind of just created this stronger sense of identity. Because you look at like, it's interesting to see like how humans change over time. As you look at like indigenous cultures where there's so much more collectivism, and it's almost like they're kind of like closer to that source idea, closer to nature, closer to God, closer to like the original form. And then where there's just these pollutants that come into play, it's almost like an experiment. Like, let's throw capitalism in here, let's throw colonialism in here, and it just causes people to become selfish and to start thinking of themselves and to start chasing an ego, building an ego, and to start, you know, trying to compete with other people and rather than try to help. And so it just makes that stronger sense of the identity of the self, of the ego. It grows bigger and bigger. You know, that's kind of what that's kind of the trip I've been on lately, is just like examining like what has happened to humans over time, and what happens when we feed different parts of who we are. Is like we can feed that ego and just like spend more time in this like physical world that we're in, and succeed here and just have riches around you and feel good about yourself and feel strong and feed that ego. Or you can kind of like cast off some of those things and start going into the other realm. It's like you almost like you hear monks and everything, they get rid of the worldly possessions. That's killing the ego. Like that's how you can like physically kill the ego, is just like get rid of all the things that you feel tied to. And I think that allows you to kind of like get back to the source a little bit easier.
Yeah, for sure. It's almost like all those things happen because of the disconnect.
Yeah.
You know, it's a disconnect from the source. It's disconnect from the life, like from the creator, from all of this like magical stuff. It's like it's a disconnect, and that's why it's a sickness, right? Like as soon as you get disconnected, then you become sick. And like that's what I was talking about with one of my friends recently. She was telling me about like indigenous scholars and how they I forget what the term was or like what the saying was, but essentially it was like they called this way of thinking like the capitalism, you know, corporatism, whatever, all that stuff, like this very Western way, this Eurocentric way of thinking. It's like it's a disconnect from the source, and like, you know, and that just you become sick, and then once you're sick, like, you know, you get other people sick, and like it just becomes contagious, and it's like a virus, you know, and like it just spreads, and and it's like, you know, it's terrible. But it's kind of crazy to think about, like if you completely dropped everything and you became like a monk like that, you know, and like that's a whole different level of like being spiritual. It's like it's like you're going to the source, and it's like that's unfathomable to me right now.
I know.
Like,
I'm looking around this room and I'm like, these are my things.
Yeah.
I can't get rid of my things.
No,
What would
no.
happen to me if I lost all my stuff?
Yeah.
Yeah, it is a wild concept, but you know, there are times when it feels like you can get closer to it. Like I know there's times I'm out in nature and walking in a forest.
Mm,
I've been mushroom picking lately.
nice.
I'll go out in the woods and do that, and I just feel like nothing else matters. Like there's times I don't care about anything else. I just feel like this feels right. Like it just feels like I'm in the middle of a forest and there's nobody for miles and miles and miles around, and I feel more at home there sometimes than I do. Like I feel more at home there than I do in like a big city with thousands of people around.
Mm-hmm.
I've been in both lately. Just came back from Vancouver, and it's just like I feel way more right, or it feels way more spiritually correct to be in that space where it's
Like in nature.
in nature. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's well, that's like where we come from, right? Like it's where we all come from, like all races, like we all come from the same source, same thing, like, you know, and Harry Robinson, you know, you talk to some of the other elders around, they have that story, you know, the four beings, the four originals. Some say it was five. And that, yeah, we all come from the same source. We're all related and we come from the earth. Like, but that's what I realized too when I fasted. You know, I've spent lots of times in the woods. Like I used to work as a wildlife technician for Okanagan Nation Alliance, and with LSIB used to do that. So I used to spend a lot of time doing PFRs, habitat surveys, like working with wildlife, all that stuff. Grew up hunting. Like I love spending time outdoors. But the one thing, the crazy thing when I fasted was that it was like I was immersed in like their world. And when I mean their world, like, you know, like the Timiuch and the Timchulauch. And I guess we're a part of it too. Like we're all relatives, right? But I was immersed in that world, and it was like, yeah, nothing else. Time really slowed down for one. It felt like time really didn't exist. And it just made me realize about how fast everything is in our society. You know, how everything's instant. Like you got fast food, you know, you got Wi-Fi, like instant dopamine on TikTok, Instagram, all those different things, right? Like everything's so instant and so quick, and it's just there's no process, there's no like, and that's like often where like most learning happens is in the process of it, right? But yeah, like time really didn't exist out there, and it was just like it was a whole different state of existing, like just sitting out there, no food, no water.
Yeah.
I didn't have a fire. You know, all I had was blankets and my smudge stuff, and I was sitting in my Sqilxw, my sweat lodge, and you know, just praying and just being grateful and like literally like rewiring my brain like for 5 days. I did it for 5 days and 4 nights.
Oh wow.
And it was during the springtime, like it was during, you know, when everything was coming to life again, and it was really cool. Like it's an amazing experience that honestly I think that everybody should go through, because it's just you have a deeper appreciation for the natural world, like for the real world. Like that's the real world, right? Like, you know, what's going on out there, and like how everything's alive. Like, you know, there's so many things that are alive, and like again, the whole cities and us living here, it's like we're disconnecting from the real world, like slowly. Like we're not spending as much time out there, we're not doing the things that we used to do, we're not honoring them, we're not talking to them. You know, and a lot of these things are foreign concepts now in modern society, where it's like you're a hippie, or you're like, you know, a liberal, or like, you know, like things like that. I have all these different negative connotations with being a certain way. It's like so crazy to think about, like when in reality, like this way that we're existing in right now is inherently messed up. Like, you know, it's backwards. We're going backwards.
Right.
You know, and like developing artificial intelligence, all that stuff, doing these resource extraction, like cutting down our forests. We're killing ourselves slowly.
Yeah.
You know, and yeah, I think that if everybody did that, everybody was able to go out there and do that, I think that, yeah, their life would be changed, because it really does shift the way you see the world when you spend that much time out there and you're suffering.
I couldn't agree more.
Yeah, it really humbled me, for sure.
It does. Well, with that in mind, I think we'll wrap it up.
Okay.
It's been an awesome chat. Very eye-opening eye-opening, some amazing topics, and that's it for episode 4. Thanks for tuning in.
Why?
We'll catch you the next one. Sweet. That's the one I had to do for TELUS.
Oh yeah.